Sam is to I'm from the future as Ed and Al are to we are sinners.
We're sinners and we lost 1.3 bodies, yeah.
Podcasts, the 21st Century Radio Show. Two friends were hit by quarantine and found themselves bored in 2020. But they committed the one taboo among content creators. Never start a podcast because you're bored. Will they go mad? Give up? Or finish watching each other's favourite shows? Whatever happens, listen with care. For what could equal the horror of spoilers?
Violence Podcast. I'm Kara.
And I'm Ginger.
And in this show, we will be discussing and doing somewhat daily recaps of the series Life on Mars and the anime Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
I'm glad you remember the script because last episode I did the intro and I totally didn't have it in front of me and I completely botched the intro.
It's fine. It was close enough.
Yeah.
You actually remembered closer than I would have.
I remembered Life on Mars and Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
And somewhat daily. Because that's where we are. So this episode's theme, just like we kind of have a tenuous theme each week I keep saying week because podcasts are weekly, but this one's not.
No.
This period of time's theme, we sort of fell back to the wonderful ProZD. And our theme this time is
Oh, they fucking.
Oh, they fucking.
They're just standing next to each other. Oh, they fucking.
They fucking. As in, these are, amongst the many, many, many other things that happen in both viewings, we have just an absolutely prime moment of the main couples on each of these shows just really being that couple.
Yeah, having the oost moment.
Yes. Yes. He made me say yes, the oost.
Yes. Oost. Oost.
So, with all that being said,
I guess we'll roll into Life on Mars.
We will roll into
Season 2, Episode 2. Hey, I remembered that.
2 and 2. And in this episode, we return to Harry Wolf, who was a character who showed up briefly earlier on, Detective Superintendent Harry Wolf, who is played by the guy who played Gibbs in Pirates of the Caribbean. It took me a while to remember where I had seen him, but there we are. He was Jean's mentor in a before time. And speaking of mentors, we also get a look at Sam's mentor, who in the outside future world has recently passed, Glenn Fletcher. As Sam discovers that his mentor has died, a younger, very 70s Glenn Fletcher arrives.
Very 70s.
Extremely 70s, and I appreciate it so much. He arrives in CID as a detective constable. I believe it was like, well, I can't judge by Ray. They said it was the first black DC at that station. Though it's coming from Ray, who knows?
Right.
So, Fletcher comes in, Sam is just, oh my god, it's him, I'm so happy to see him.
Senpai!
It's Senpai! And we then go into, it's not really a B plot, it's kind of a D plot that is Sam acts, and the best way I can describe it is for anyone who's seen Saved by the Bell. Did you ever see that very special episode of Saved by the Bell where Zach had a girlfriend in a wheelchair or a friend in a wheelchair, and he was trying to be sensitive to her plight by being like, y'all, be nicer to her, she's in a wheelchair, and it just made it 50 times worse? That's kind of where Sam was here for the beginning part of this episode, where, we had the casual racism, we had the much less casual racism and sexism with Ray, who's like, oh my god, anyone, there are all these different types of people coming in here, what's next? And then we have Sam, who's just being super duper awkward.
Yeah. I would call that the unintentionally cringy racism.
Unintentionally cringy racism. And so we will come back to that D plot, but basically what's going on is Dicky Fingers, who I love his name. His name is Richard Hands. His nickname is Dicky Fingers. I getcha. So, Dicky Fingers was being taken custody of by the cops. The cops were hijacked by thugs who kidnapped Dicky, and CID is now trying to find him.
I want to say, importantly, not only was he kidnapped, he was taken from the cops. The cops in question were Chris, Ray, and Sam, who went on a road trip. Who went on a road trip to go pick him up.
Who went on a road trip through the sort of countryside part of Manchester, which when you look at it, I was like, yep, that's Manchester. So Sam is trying to be the senpai to his senpai and make everyone respect Fletcher, and ends up just being super duper awkward about it. And the only lead that they have on where Dicky Fingers has gone and the various things going on around his disappearance is the name Harcourt. Sam discovers that Wolf is not really doing well.
Oh yeah, that's right. Wolf gets introduced and he's like, oh, I forgot exactly how it was, but he phrased it in such a way that he was just like, oh, you know my terrible secret. And I'm like, oh no, he's dying and he only has 1 day left until retirement.
But he has cancer. He has about a year to live. So the team is going undercover at a post office where they have been informed that Dicky will be taking part in a robbery. So they go undercover at the post office. They discover Dicky Fingers after a few behind-the-scenes mishaps having to do with this being Annie's first time on the job, like, as a DC, and we'll come back to that.
It's so great. It's Annie's first rodeo.
It's Annie's first rodeo as a DC. She's been very helpful as a WPC, and now she's sort of out of the uniform and official.
Also, I'm just going to say I'm really glad that you can keep these terms straight, because I don't know what the hell's going on with all these titles.
Yeah,
I understand they exist and that they mean something, but they're all flying right over my head.
I learned them from Life on Mars.
Yeah.
out of necessity to keep them straight. So, who says television isn't educational? So they bring Dicky Fingers back to the station as he has in fact arrived with the robbers, and Dicky Fingers informs Sam that it is in fact Harry Wolf who is behind all these robberies.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. Sam doesn't believe this, but it scans, and Sam talks it over with Annie because that's the only person he ever talks about anything with. Sam tells Jean. Jean does not take it well and inflicts grievous bodily harm with a telephone. And
on Dicky Fingers, not
Fingers,
Sam.
not Sam or Annie, or on Dicky Fingers' hand, as it happens. Wolf, on the other hand, is like, no, absolutely, if this is what you think is going on, please investigate me. That is what a cop should do. So, again, the next morning, once again, Dicky Fingers disappears from jail. He just keeps getting busted out. Sam decides to investigate Wolf after all. He brings Fletcher with him. Fletcher does not fare the better for it. He doesn't die. He just gets beat up pretty badly. Jean and Sam go to investigate Wolf's office because at this point it's looking like, unfortunately, Jean's mentor really is the one behind all this. They get all the information in his office, which is, account books, money, and again, all this other stuff that, leads to him being behind these robberies.
And the best part is that Jean opens all doors by punching them. So Jean is going through different things, and he's like, what's this? Punches the picture frame. What's this? Punches a box.
Well, he knows. He knows
the secret.
His skeleton key, as it were. Now that they have the truth of the situation, that yes, it really is Harry Wolf. And by the way, Harry is short for Harcourt. So it all comes back around. The intel they got at the beginning was accurate. Now Jean and Harry have to talk. And Harry asks for mercy in that, hey, I'm going to be dead in a year. Can't I please just have this time to escape with my money? Can't you let me off? And Jean's like, no.
God, I'm so happy that was the resolution. I was going to be so angry if it was like, oh, fine. Yeah, that's fine. I've been like, no.
That said, Jean is actually torn up about this. He's not just a bad boy about it. He really is messed up about this. He is messed up. He does say, no, I don't like this. He does pause. Fletcher comes running in. So we got a standoff here. We've got Harry with a gun at Jean. We've got Jean with a gun at Harry, though he drops it. We've got Fletcher with a gun. And Harry goes, well, I wonder which of you will fire for... And Jean absolutely shoots him in the leg.
Which did not look that way to me when we first saw it.
I'm considering where Harry's hand was, I'm just guessing leg.
I know. It's probably the leg. However, it did not look that way when it first happened.
No. After that, Glenn moves on from the station. I should mention also that Glenn originally came, allegedly, from Hyde, where at the beginning of Life on Mars, we were told that Sam came from, and, we're referred back to that. And Glenn briefly mentions, I think I remember you from Hyde. Whether that's, what that means, nobody knows. Sam decides that he is going to take that number he got from last episode, Hyde 2612. He's going to call up, and the dude on the other end is like, don't do that. I'll call you when it's time. Like, you know what you're supposed to do. You wait until I call you. Of course, Sam does not know what he's supposed to do or even who this man is. And that's sort of where things wrap up for that episode.
All right.
So, like I mentioned to you off recording, when I first saw the show, when it first aired, this is the episode where I really did start to like Gene very much, because we did see a little bit of him actually having feelings about what he's doing last season.
Him having feelings about having feelings.
Having feelings about having feelings. Last season with Warren and sort of taking, backhanders from people. And, talking about his life and talking about, my brother and how messed up that got and having to confront these things. So this is technically the second time we've really seen him addressing his feelings on something rather than it just being Sam's emotions leading everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I really did like that Gene is a conflicted individual. About things where he's like, I absolutely know what's right. I know the right thing to do here. I am still really upset that the man who I trusted is doing this, and now he's asking me to let him get away with it.
Yeah.
It was a great scene.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting. One of my notes is in the episode, the note that I wrote down, it says Sam and Gene basically have parallel journeys about being disappointed in their mentor figures. And with Sam, it's a lot less severe than what Gene encounters and deals with this episode. But it was interesting to note that, especially because we're so used to Gene being this very boisterous, very confident, very assured, very firm on what he thinks and what he believes in and where he stands on things, that, he definitely does not want to believe that his mentor is a corrupt figure and that, his mentor is one behind all these things. But I was glad to see that when it came down to it, he did believe it in the moment where it needed to happen. Like, it wasn't like one of those things where he let him get away once, and then the second confrontation, then he pulls the trigger. It was like, nope, they got to that scene where it was undeniably true, and he made a decision, that was on the side of justice and the law.
Yep. It's on the side of justice, on the side of the law, but you can also see that, he didn't enjoy it.
No, yeah. The hesitation was in the same scene. Like, typically how you would see these played out was it happens over two confrontations or a couple confrontations, but in this instance it happened all in the same confrontation. It happened all in the same scene. Just the initial thing being he lowers his gun and is like, well, yeah, maybe I'll let you get away, and then Fletcher running in kind of revs the scene up again and gives him a second chance to do it.
Fletcher was played by Ray Emmett Brown, and I'm trying to recall if I have seen him in anything else. But
my first observation about Fletcher was he dresses like the Seventh Doctor. He has the V-neck sweater vest.
You're absolutely right about the parallel journeys, but it's sort of like it's two levels of bringing your mentor down off a pedestal, because for Gene, it's having to admit it is possible for someone I admire to have been corrupt.
Yeah.
Like, that is possible. And what do you do when that happens? How are you going to deal with that? And in Sam's case, it's more, wow, I really idolized this guy and he made me who I am, but it is very possible that he was not always, not corrupt. Absolutely not.
No, but Sam in his mind seems to have cast Fletcher as this always perfect being, which is not at all how people are ever. Like,
no. You
have to build yourself up to be, the best at something, or however you want to put it. And so, but in Sam's mind, apparently Sam always just thought like, oh, I met my mentor, and now it's when he's young, and he must be just as great and knowledgeable and full of wisdom as when he's like a full-grown adult. That's not right. They're all full-grown adults. But, you know, like a matured veteran as opposed to more of a newbie.
Yeah, it's like, oh wow, now I'm gonna see the beginning of this amazing journey, and it's like, no, he was young. He had a lot of things.
We're all not Jesus, okay? We all most people, in fact, I think everyone but Jesus has to start out at a path of being not very good at something, or maybe just even neutral. You know, like, not even saying that Fletcher was bad, just that he wasn't perfect, which is, you know, normal.
He was in a very insecure place where, understandably, given where he was and when he was, his main goal was surviving the day with a scrap of dignity. Mm-hmm. You know, especially when you had people like Ray around.
Yeah.
There was a great scene, you know, after Sam had done his sort of awkward unintentional racism, that great scene in the hallway where I really liked it because it was one of the better depictions I have seen of understanding what a time was like. You know, you have this future man who comes back and he's like, gosh, I don't know why you just play into their racism. You should be like this. Mm-hmm. You should just stick up for yourself and be strong. And Fletcher's like, okay, well, here's what it's like.
Yeah.
Obviously, he doesn't say this because this is one of the few people that Sam does not give his, you know, I'm from the future speech to. Sam is to I'm from the future as Ed and Al are to we are sinners.
We're sinners and we lost 1.3 bodies, yeah.
But yeah, that Fletcher just outlining, hey, here's my life. Boy, your method sounds fantastic. I'm not sure what planet it would work on.
Right.
And Sam coming down to this idea of, you know, it's not about this specific thing, it is more about the human being, about the individual.
Yeah, and what I liked about that scene in particular was what Sam says to him basically says, like, because I took this to mean it's not just applicable to the current scene situation, it's applicable to pretty much anybody, mm-hmm. where Sam is telling him, you know, yeah, okay, however, you need to understand that your daily survival it's fine for this. However, you also need to understand that you can be better and you will be better, because Sam is kind of dropping that he's from the future hints.
He's just not outright saying it.
Yeah, and to me, what I took that as is sort of like when it made me think about myself, where it's, you know, it's like, okay, so maybe you don't think right now that you're all that important, or maybe all you're focusing on right now is just getting to tomorrow, or whatever the case may be, and you might not think you have any impact on other people, but you need to realize that as you get older, and especially if you're in a position where you can be a mentor figure, and that could pretty much be anywhere. Like,
oh yeah,
I know we often talk about like, oh, this teacher influenced me or this whatever, but I'm thinking about like, well, I had a coworker at my very first job who was older than me, and he imparted a lot of wisdom on me from my first job, and that was as a graphic artist, so it wasn't exactly like a teacher position, you know, but the importance of that's, you know, you need to understand that you as a human being have more influence on those around you and those younger than you realize, and that just, and that definitely means more than just, like I said, just the current situation. It applies to everybody, everywhere, no matter who you are, no matter what profession you're in. Just understanding that you do matter, and you do matter to other people.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I think, like, not just a message of, like, you know, when you're feeling depressed and people are like, no, you matter. You're like, yeah, I get that. Yeah, fine. I know, you give me virtual hugs, whatever. But just in that fact where I think we sometimes don't realize, you're like, oh yeah, like, there are people who look up to me that you might not realize it. You know, senpai, like, I mean, obviously, Kara and I have a senpai-kohai relationship here.
If you haven't noticed from the occasional senpai-kohai talk.
But, like, you know, so that's cool and everything, but I also realize, like, I've done certain zine projects and things like that, and I know I have people who have put me down as job references for things, and I don't find myself to be a very important or mature person, but to other people, I have meant something to them in that regard.
Yeah, it's a good message that becomes a further spanning one. And also this idea that, you know, people are going to be watching.
Yeah.
People are looking to you. And yeah, there are some absolute assholes out there. Mm-hmm. Like some complete ones that are going to make your life extremely hard for reasons that have nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. and sort of this understanding of, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could be the absolute saint? I think of, in my own life, there was a line that Fletcher said that I have actually said.
Yeah.
Which is, I didn't sign up, I didn't say it in the exact words, but essentially it's like, I didn't sign on to be a standard bearer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When I was, a long time ago, I was very ill with something, and there were people who were sort of, you know, this little bit of personal information, listeners, a lot of people who were using this chronic illness I had to try to ask me to represent and feel certain ways about certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not choose to have, you know, a stage 4 illness. I was just living through it, and, you know, there were points when I was like, hey, yo, I did not choose this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just surviving, and there's this sort of, there's that in-between thing of, there are things that people expect of you that might be too much, there are ways that people are going to treat you that you don't deserve, and you have to find that sort of middle ground of, am I coping in a way that keeps me, that keeps me alive, that keeps me grounded, but that also I feel okay with.
Yeah.
And I obviously cannot speak to Fletcher's situation, and I'll never be able to. I acknowledge that. It's like, yep, that's never going to happen to me.
Right.
But, especially because I'm not in the 70s. But,
yeah, we're definitely not, no.
Oh my goodness, it's knockwood. If I'm ever in a coma, you'll know. But,
I will know that if Kara's in a coma, I will be like, I'll look at her and I'll be like, she's currently in a 1973 cop drama.
She's out there shooting bad guys. She's fine.
Shooting bad guys and throwing guys on cardboard boxes.
Doing all right.
Doing backflips in her imagination.
Hell yeah. But I felt there were a lot of good messages in this show. The thing about the mentors, the thing about sort of, how you conduct yourself in certain areas and how you cope.
And you want to know what to think about this, though, is that this is exactly why it's a very effective way of conveying the message.
Yeah.
Because it isn't just, it is applicable to the situation in the show 100%, absolutely. However, it is also a really great message for yourself, anybody who's watching the show, absolutely anybody, no matter who you are, can actually take that message and apply it to themselves as well.
Yeah, the overarching message of the episode is someone will look up to you, what are you going to do with that?
Yeah, and also I think the other half of the message is also, there are also people in your life who are going to disappoint you. How are you going to respond to that? Exactly.
Are you going to do the right thing? And, what is the right thing?
Yeah.
It's an episode that's really full of good messages that apply everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the one disappointment I have, and I hate to be critical as a person who absolutely does not write for TV. I'm sitting here in my shop going, I am an indie published author who knows things. So, I feel really weird speaking about that. But,
well, it's fine. I mean, it's like I'm a indie graphic designer who is mostly self-published zines, and then it's like, I'm going to critique art. I'm like, well, I guess I maybe have the right to. IDK, who has the right to do anything in this crazy world?
Yeah.
To do whatever. Let your critique flag fly, Kara.
Yeah, so with Life on Mars, there was one guest writer, and the rest of the episodes were written by the 3 co-creators. With Ashes to Ashes, they had a lot more guest writers in. This is Future Kara from the editing room, cutting in with a self-fact check. There were actually several guest writers for Life on Mars, all but one of whom were only in the 2nd season. This episode's writer, Chris Chibnall, was the only guest writer in Season 1. Carry on past me. To be fair, it doesn't show often. You don't really feel that, hey, there's someone in here that's different. There's something weird going on. But there were a couple of things about this episode with regards to, I think, how Jean treated Annie.
Mm-hmm.
Felt off to me. Now, I was telling Ginger off recording, Jean's not a misogynist with women, he's an adolescent.
Yeah.
And
I think we're both believers in the fact there's a difference between if you're a lads kind of guy and an outright sexist. There is a huge difference between the two of them.
Case in point, Ray. It's like, Ray is there to demonstrate to us someone who is actually quite bad about things.
Yeah.
Like, straight up. He's just not good about stuff. Jean will go after everybody in the way that's gonna get them, but he cares about everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he would not have let Sam bring Annie on as a DC if he really did not think.
Right.
you know, he cares about everyone in the department, even if he jabs at them. Especially if he jabs at them.
Yeah.
It's one of those things of, if he knows exactly how to get at you, he probably, you know, cares a lot about you. But in this episode, there were just moments with Annie, like, you know, she's now a part of the team. She walks in, and he's, obviously these are not the exact words, I can't remember the line, but she starts to walk in, he's like, yo, bitch, who said that you could come in here? And I'm like, what the fuck? Gene, no! I was like, you know, revisiting those moments. The other one is when they were in the post office doing the undercover thing, and Annie comes in and she says a very good and true line, which is she's just standing there with this gun in her hand, like, I don't know what to do with this, and I wish I did. Like, she makes it very clear, I've never been trained to use firearms. I don't think that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's very fair. Yeah, Annie should totally have been trained to use firearms. And Jean's response is, oh, God, women, huh? Scared of guns. If a guy picked up a gun, he'd just be so hyped. What's wrong with you, girl? And it's
I loved it because I know, like, it was like, you're very sweet. Your response to that was saying, Jean, what Jean should have done. And I just love this line because it just seems so appropriate. You're like, Jean would have taught her right then and there how to shoot.
And then told her to use Sam's nuts as target practice. Yeah. Like...
Listeners, I've only watched this show for like 2 weeks, and I fully believe in that character decision right there.
It's so... I'm sorry, but like, and again, it's like, you having watched for 2 weeks, and this is one point where it's like, I know that I've seen this show millions and millions of times, but you having seen it X amount can still agree with me that Gene's response to a woman walking up to him and going, with a gun and going, what do I do with this? Would be, I get to teach a girl to use a gun, that's kind of hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, where does he get off going, I don't understand. Yeah. So, I felt, I get it, there are different things. I just felt that this was kind of...
I think it's fair for you to feel strongly about this because you like Gene. Like, he's your guy. I'm going to assume your favorite character in the series.
He is my fave.
When you have a fave like that, you do feel very strongly about these things, and I feel this way about other characters in other franchises. Like, I totally get it.
Yeah.
And you're not, and especially when you're like, you're not taking anything away from your love of the show by saying, I love this show, I just have a critique about this one moment in time of this one part of the show.
Literally 3 entire lines ever.
Yeah, you know? Exactly. And I think you're totally, you could totally say that because I can think of characters that where I go, I trust you, I know, writer, that you're the one writing the show. You know, but I feel possibly strongly in the opposite direction of what you've done here, good sir.
Yeah, and that's not me going, therefore you are incorrect.
Right.
And therefore I am better than you. I think that's something that's something that gets lost in a lot of
That's the major thing lost in translation is you're not sitting here saying, and I know better than you, and therefore my interpretation is correct. That's not what you're saying.
The fortunate thing, I think, is that these were throwaway lines, as much as they didn't seem like it at the time. These do not become indicative. Like, the thing... What's funny is, you know what Gene thinks of Annie as a part of the team in the episode where Sam is keeping the girl at his house and ends up getting handcuffed to the bed and raped. And Gene does not know yet that that's what happens. Mm-hmm. But you know where Gene stands with, one, Annie as a grown-ass woman and a part of the team, and 2, Sam and Annie as an item.
Yeah. When
Gene busts into Sam's apartment, sees him handcuffed to the bed, and goes, oh man, it would suck if Annie saw this. Annie!
Yeah.
You know? That's sort of like, okay,
Yeah, Gene strikes as a character where basically if you're like, well, what does Gene think of Annie being on the squad? I think Gene is just going, I don't fucking care. You know what I mean? Like, I just think he's like, I don't care. We have other shit we need to be focusing on right now.
If Gene did not want Annie on the squad, he would not have accepted Sam's decision.
Exactly, because Gene could have said no, and he didn't.
Yeah, he did not say no. He was like, okay, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. And then when Ray pinched her ass and Annie turned around and slapped it, he's like, okay, that's actually a pretty good decision. Yeah. But we don't see as much of how Gene treats women in this season. We see it here and there. We're going to see so much more of it in a few episodes.
Like, do you mean Ashes to Ashes? Or
I mean
like
Ashes to Ashes. That's...
Okay. All right. Yeah. I know why.
Yeah, I know you know why, because it's like in all the...
Yeah. But also, I think, in the very least, this at least provides fodder. You're like, well, I can write a fanfic epilogue to this episode, which is the side episode of Jean and Annie go to the gun range and learn how to, and Annie learns how to properly handle a firearm.
Is that a fanfic request?
If you want to, question
Sure thing.
mark. Because
Okay,
you want to
sure.
know why? I think because Sam would not be any fun. Jean would be fun.
Yeah.
Therefore, Jean should be the one who teaches Annie how to handle a firearm.
I mean, Sam would be there. He
Sam would be there, but Sam would be the annoying one in the background.
You should teach her proper trigger discipline.
Yeah, well, trigger discipline is very important.
Trigger discipline is very important, but he would be like, you know, just sitting there with like a little list of notes of, you do this first, you do this next, and
and
he's
you do
just like,
this.
all right, hold the gun.
Yeah, so Sam is the one that has the the little handbook, and he's flipping through the pages, telling you exactly the line by line, and he even enunciates the commas that are in the line of text. Jean is like, all right, and then, you know, you do this and
he's
this and this
actually-
and this.
He's transcribed the 2005 handbook into his notebook, and he's like, step one. and Jean's already got her over here pointing at the target, you know?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, all right. So now, listeners,
we need to mention one more thing, which
We
is
do.
the title of the episode. The
Oh,
all they
right.
fucking. We missed
Oh,
this. It's a very important scene, listener, and I was ferocious, and I think Cara was very happy about my reaction at this.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a scene, it's where Sam is telling Annie about Hoover, right? Or, wait, was his name Hoover?
it was
Wolf. Wait.
Yeah, Harcourt Wolf.
Wolf.
Harry
Oh my.
Wolf.
I know why I said Hoover. It's a client of mine. That's where my brain was. Okay, so Wolf. I'm sorry, people. But so Sam is telling Annie about Wolf, and the way in it's like they're in the office part, and no one else is there, and the lights are dimmed, and it's a sweeping kind of camera shot, and we start off in the background, kind of extended away, and I just said to Cara, I was like, I swear to God, right now, they should be making out on a desk. What is going on here? How is that not happening? It was just one of those things where it was, because not only was it the lighting and the colors and the angle and the camera movement, but it was also just the fact that, like, a couple of different things playing into it. One, Annie is in normal dress. She's not like a cop uniform or anything like that, so they're kind of on this level of equals, as opposed to Sam being kind of a commanding superior officer. That was part of it, but also just this fact that Sam is talking about something that's not about his crazy future schemes or his crazy future man thing. He's not, so Annie is not playing therapist to him for once.
Yeah, for real. They're actually just talking.
They're just discussing this case and the what Sam's uncovered and all these things, but I was just like, why are they not making out right now on the desks? Come on!
And there was this moment that was almost wonderful. There was this almost wonderful line. And again, it sort of goes back into what I was saying before, where Jean just kind of saunters in and he's like, oh, hey, look at you. Wow. You know, woohoo. And at first it's great because it's like shipper on deck. And then he just says a horrible thing. And you're like, ah, damn it.
He says some very things that I don't think were like necessary from him or whatever. But I immediately said, how is this guy married? And Sam is like, how does your wife put up with you? I'm like, that's right, Sam. That's right.
I will say, and this is not a spoiler, is we never see Mrs. Hunt on screen.
Okay, well,
We do hear a lot about her.
This is just like going back to the thick of it and the whole Malcolm Tucker's married question. So
I like the fact that your reaction when he first mentioned the wife was, Jean's married, and then not long after, everyone on screen was like, Jean's married.
Visible confusion audible in my voice.
Visible confusion audible. So yeah, anything else in that episode? I thought that overall, even with my quibbles, it was a very good episode with very good things to say.
Yeah.
A lot of good character development.
Yeah. FMA time? Sin time?
FMA Sin time!
So, our episodes of Fullmetal Alchemist were episode 19, Death of the Undying, and episode 20, Father Before the Grave. I'm so excited.
Oh my
gosh! Finally.
Oh my goodness!
So in Death of the Undying is basically, it is the military squad takes on a homunculus and wins. That is the TLDR of the episode.
That was so good.
Yeah, it was great. And essentially what happens is, so Mustang, Havoc, and so last episode as we left off, it was Gluttony was going to go eat Hawkeye. Hawkeye goes ham with her mini firearms on him, but
yes,
we learn Gluttony is regenerating his injuries, she had been on the radio with Mustang, but then, and so Mustang's like, hello? Hello? What's up? What's going on? And then he runs on over and he kerfires at Gluttony and knocks Gluttony off from this bell tower they were in. What ends up happening is that Barry's human body is attacking Barry, and then Barry's human body runs away. So Barry the Chopper is very excited about getting to chop up his own body. And I just wish at this moment in time I could verbalize emoticons better, because Kara had has the best emoticons for Barry the Chopper. They're my favorite faces of the night.
I'll put them in like the YouTube description.
Okay,
like,
perfect.
Here are the emoticons that Kohai was talking about.
I forgot how Alphonse got into the scene, but basically they all pile into a car and they chase after Barry, the human body, and he ends up running into a laboratory, and so they're like, oh, damn it, we can't go in there. But then they're like, wait a minute, I have an idea. And so who goes in? We have Mustang, Hawkeye, Barry the Chopper, and Alphonse and Havoc go into this building being like, stand back, soldier citizens, that was a deranged killer, and he's killed and he'll kill again. And they go, go after him. Oh wait, I apologize. Barry the Chopper ran. He's chasing his body. He doesn't give a fuck about anything else. So he's chasing after his body. So Mustang, Hawkeye, Alphonse, and Havoc then proceed in after him, going, haha, crazy killer. And they kind of are following the source, and they end up in this like a creepy back alley hallway thing inside the building. And they do what you should never do in D&D, which is split the party. Mustang and Havoc go one way. Hawkeye and Alphonse go another way. Havoc and Mustang end up in a room where they are encountered by Lust, who, as we learned, Lust was dating Havoc. Yep. And we get a titty joke. Because so Lust, as you might have, she's a homunculus, and her Ouroboros tattoo is above her cleavage, and Roy just goes like, I see why you fell for her. So what ends up happening is Lust her special dinosaur power is she can extend her fingers. She starts stabbing at them, and Mustang is like, well, I'm gonna light you on fire then. That's what I can do. And Lust reveals that at the core of a homunculus is a philosopher's stone. They need that stone that's how they exist. So she reveals this to them, and then she kind of she kerstabs Havoc in this, I'm assuming, like, the kidneys.
I don't know, kerspleen is pretty good.
Yeah, in the kidney spleens. He is bleeding out on the floor, and Mustang's like, shit, no! He just, like, what is the term? Is immolate the right term?
Immolate is exactly the right term.
Okay, he immolates Lust, and he just rips out her Philosopher's Stone. And he's like, I don't know about medical stuff, but I'm gonna heal Havoc now. And Lust ends up reforming around his hand from the Philosopher's Stone. Oh, yeah. And I forgot how this, I think did they set up like a fire, like a sprinkler alarm or whatever, but like, so the running joke with Mustang is that he creates flames with gloves that have the alchemy symbol for the flame stuff on the glove, and then he creates sparks and fire and controls fire, and that's his whole thing. He's the flame alchemist. That's his state alchemist title. Mm-hmm. So, Lust basically stabs Havoc. Havoc's bleeding out. She stabs Mustang. Mustang's bleeding out. And then she walks away being like, well, bitches be dead. I guess I'm done here. We go over to Hawkeye and Alphonse, and they go into this weird white room that has this weird, intricately carved door in it, and they find Barry the Chopper with Barry the human, and Barry the Chopper's like, I guess this body's worn out, huh? Crazy shit, right? Who knows how long a soul can be bound to a thing that it's not supposed to be in, and Alphonse freaks out again and has more existential panic about things. Lust ends up coming over to that room, and Barry the Chopper, this is another great point where she's like, Barry, what are you doing here? You're on our side. And Barry's just like, I got bored and I switched sides. and so then he's like, I'm gonna chop you up now. And he runs after her and she just slices him into pieces. So now Barry is now in pieces on the floor. He's still alive, but he's in pieces on the floor, quote unquote alive. He's a soul-bound in a suit of armor. They get into this fight. Lust kind of slices Alphonse up a little bit, and Lust tells them, oh, Mustang's dead. Like, the Colonel's dead. And Hawkeye goes ape shit and just fires and fires and fires and fires and fires. But, kind of like, she doesn't have enough, Lust regenerates. And Hawkeye's out of gun.
She runs.
Who comes but Mustang? Mustang comes stumbling into the room, Alphonse kind of immediately picks up on things, and he puts a wall up to protect himself and Hawkeye, and Mustang basically says, I seared the wound on my body shut. He cauterized the wound by burning himself. He's like, I nearly passed out. He's carved his alchemy symbol that was on his glove into his hand, and just goes. He does charcoal briquettes Lust. Like what we thought happened to Ross a couple episodes ago, he actually does to Lust. He just kills Lust. He kills her so hard. Lust is dead. And I think what you need to do to really kill a homunculus is you can't just kill the body, you also have to, like, destroy the Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah.
So he does that. She is gone. Gone, okay, guys? She's gone. Then Hawkeye and Alphonse and Mustang go back, and they go get Havoc. Barry the Chopper is left as a wiggling piece of metal, and he's like, well, I guess this isn't all bad, but I hope someone fixes me. And it turns out his body is still alive, and his body, though, is like a, animal, and comes over and scratches the blood seal. So Barry the Chopper is no more.
Bye-bye, buddy.
And I think you had a great line when we were watching, and you're just like, show, please stop making me like a serial killer.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not a serial killer fangirl. I'm not in that mentality. So it's like, I'm sorry, he's funny.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention that apparently that at one point, because you had another great line from this, which is that King Bradley shows up.
Oh yeah, that Werther's original ass dude.
And he ends up, he's going to go in to kind of neutralize the situation, but he arrives on the scene, not seen by anybody else, but he's like, oh, this is taken care of, I'm going to peace out then, and he kind of fades into the background. Mm-hmm. The episode ends with back to Ed. Ed is back in Risenbul after traveling in the desert, as you do, and he's going to the graveyard to go see his mom in the grave, and who is standing in front of the grave but a mysterious figure that we've only seen since the first opening of the series.
Who looks a whole lot like Ed, but older.
But, because, spoilers, it's his dad. Dun,
it's
dun,
his
dun.
Dad.
And as you said, as Kara said, you know shit's real when the ending theme bleeds into the animation of the episode.
Yep, when you just start hearing "Let it all out," and he's still standing there going.
And so it is his dad. It is Ed and Al's dad, Van Hohenheim, who is back from the gas station of sin.
He got his sin, so now he's back from the gas station.
So the next episode, which is episode 25, Before the Grave, they have a confrontation. Hohenheim is just sort of like, sup, you're taller than the last time I saw you.
Well, at least someone's finally said something nice to him.
Yeah, and, also he's like, why did you burn down my house?
A valid question.
A valid question. Ed is doing this whole, tough guy act, because Ed hates his dad. Alphonse doesn't have strong emotions about his dad because Alphonse was basically a baby when their dad left. So Ed hates his dad. Ed blames his father for leaving them, and he also thinks that, their mom died because of him leaving, that kind of stuff. So Ed is like, we burned down the house because we had resolved to never look back, and Hohenheim is going, oh, no, you burned down the house to hide your mistakes, like a child who wets the bed and hides the bed sheets. Calling Ed out on his bullshit, which is... It's funny to me because Ed is such a confident character, but he's also obnoxiously confident in the sense of, I don't believe in God, and we're going, but why don't you? You should.
You kind of saw God.
You saw God, whereas so Hohenheim is calling him out on his bullshit. Just cuts right through the tough guy act. They go back to the Rockbell residence. Hohenheim and Panako stay up, and she mentions some mysterious things to him. Because Panako's an old woman, but she has a photo when she was a much younger woman, and says, you haven't aged at all, Hohenheim. Crazy shit, right? And they have a conversation, and Edward is listening out in the hallway, where basically Hohenheim is like, that thing my sons brought back to life, are you sure it was Trisha, which is their mother?
Right.
Are you sure it was her? And Edward hears this and kind of freaks out and then goes back to bed. The next morning, Hohenheim just leaves, and he tells Panako, get out of this country, dangerous things are happening. And she's like, dangerous shit happens all the time, whatever. But then Ed is like, I think we should go dig up the thing that we brought back to life. So Ed and Panako go off, and they dig up what they thought was Trisha Elric. So Ed finds a strand of hair from this body and washes it, and he's like, this is the wrong hair color. They dig up all the bones, Panako does the measurements, she's like, this is not your mother. Like, you know, the bones are too big, the pelvis isn't correct, this is not your mom.
This is literally a dude.
This is literally a dude who is literally not your mother. So Edward calls Azumi and asks her, like, are you sure that what you brought back to life was your baby? And then Azumi hangs up on him. Later, and then Edward goes back to Central and explains to to Alphonse, you know, what we did was we didn't bring Mom back to life, we brought back something else. However, through this, I'm still trying to wrap my memory around this part, so forgive me, but basically, Ed with this discovery goes, but because of this, I know I can bring Alphonse's soul back. Mm-hmm. And I think it has to do, I thought it was because of one thing, but I think it's because Ed says something like, because I was able to get your soul, there's still a link to your body, I think is what he said. So basically, the thing about their mom was dead. She was gone and she was dead, and they only had, like, the body they dug up, I think was the kind of the case. But the elusiveness of human transmutation is the soul part, which is why the fact that Alphonse is bound to a suit of armor, and then, like, Barry was bound to a suit of armor, that they have the soul is a very intriguing thing that makes the whole thing seem possible. So, but with this discovery, you know, Ed is like, no, this is a good thing. It's a good thing that what we totally fucked ourselves over for was not Mom.
Yeah.
And, you know, the boys have their resolve, and that's how the episode ends. But also, very importantly, is that in the middle of this, Azumi calls the hotel back in Central where Ed and Al and Winry are and says, you know, me and my husband looked up our genetics, and the thing that was brought back was not my baby. So basically, the relief is that my baby didn't have to die twice. And it's closure for Azumi because, and I would assume also for Ed and Al in the sense that they didn't make their loved ones suffer again. And also, what Alphonse mentions is Alphonse says, when I first, he's like, how did he go? He's like, when I first came back, I saw you, meaning Al's soul was temporarily in the thing that they brought back, that they created.
He was looking through those eyes.
He was looking through those eyes at Ed, but then his soul got rejected from that body, and then Ed bound the soul to the armor.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where that is. And so that's kind of where we're left off is we have this major discovery. We know now that, you know, what they did and didn't do, and we also know that apparently, according to Ed, that means that they can totally get Alphonse's body back.
That's good.
Oh, and Rinwi totally has the hots for Ed at the end of the episode.
Yeah, she's doing, like, I mentioned to Ginger that there's this thing, and I've seen it when I've been localizing, like, anime and games and stuff, where there's this very romanticized thing about looking at someone's back and shoulders as they walk away purposefully. Like, I remember I worked with one translator who would leave things very literal, and they kept using this phrase, standing behind their back. And I was like, what in the world does that mean? And then I realized, oh no, it's referring to standing behind them in such a way that you can see how strong their shoulders are as they walk. It's like this thing. Yeah. So she's doing that thing where it's like, oh, his shoulders look so broad and strong. And it's like, yeah, that's very much sort of that thing. Because
there's a conversation that happens in the episode where Ed says to Al and Winry, he's like, do you guys remember this fight conversation that we had when we were little?
Oh, yeah.
And Ed gets all blushy and he goes, Al, do you remember that we had a fight about who was going to marry Winry?
Gosh, yeah.
And Winry and Al both say, yes, she rejected both of them because, as Winry says, I don't find men who are shorter than me attractive. And when they were little kids, Winry was taller than both of them. And so, but then what Ed says is, I don't remember that, but you two do, which therefore means Al is real. Like the soul that we had with us is Alphonse. It isn't like a copy or whatever. So it's actually really funny because I'll just say, back in the 03 anime days, there was apparently major shipping wars between Ed Winry shippers and Al Winry shippers.
Oh my goodness.
That was a thing. But Brotherhood has made it very clear that Winry and Ed have the hots for each other, but in their very teenage way.
Yeah.
So that's where those two episodes end up. And like I said, I was super psyched to finally have Hohenheim in the series. Like,
yeah, there he is.
There he is. There's the Sin Dad.
The Sin Dad.
Dado sins.
Dado sins. He's finally come home.
So, again, a lot happens in the two episodes. Do you have any thoughts, feelings?
Well, it's interesting to see Hohenheim back, and it's interesting to see all the stuff coming around with regards to lust and what she was. But it was interesting to see Hohenheim for that brief time. I cannot get over the fact that the dog growled at him.
Yeah.
Like, so here's the thing. When I pick out little bitty stuff like, oh, the dog growled at him, this show has already proven not to overlook anything.
Right. Yeah.
Like, this show has already just dropped teeny tiny little clues of things, so now it's like, if I notice something that feels off, I'm gonna remember it.
Yeah.
Because this show has payoff, so if I see, like, dogs know.
Yeah.
Dogs sure do know, and this seems like, this seems like a nice dog, so...
Right, yeah, and there was a scene in episode 20 where, at the very beginning, where Hohenheim goes into Ed's room where Ed's sleeping, and he does that thing where he's, like, gonna go touch his son, but then he pulls his hand back and stares mournfully at his hand.
Yeah.
So then we don't know what was going on. We don't know what was going on with that, and then Den's the name of the dog, growls at him.
Yeah. So that's a thing. It's very interesting that we're starting to see the mechanics of the transmutation, of the attempting to bring back Trisha and the baby. It's like, so my question is, with we have this huge leg bone and this black hair, and this is 1000% a dude. And my question is, so did they just make a dude, or did they bring back someone else? Like, that's my question is...
Right.
I'm like, or is that something not to ask yet?
I'll be honest, I don't know.
Okay, that's fair. That is fair.
Because currently in my mind, which is not remembering everything, I'm thinking that... Because what confuses me, for instance, is they dug up her body. Like, they specifically... Or did they? No, they would have had to. They probably dug up her bones, because she would have been bones by that point. But they also...
Which basically means they traded 2.3 bodies for this rando.
Well, they traded... Well, the thing was, remember they bought the ingredients? Like how Mustang was like, buy me a lot of pork and ammonia?
Right.
So I think what they were doing was they have the bones, they have the skeleton, which is, okay, fine. But then they don't have, like, you need material for, like, the muscle and skin and organs. I think that was I think that was the idea of why they had a grocery shopping list to build a human.
Yeah.
And so, so then I think, though, is the fact that all they have, though, are components of a person.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe that our bones contain are like DNA things.
Right.
So they just had they just kind of had the components to create a human being, but they didn't have the soul. And so I think they made some kind of monster abomination human flesh pod.
Right.
But they didn't. But I don't think they necessarily brought back their mother or a random person.
They just made a thing.
They made a thing, which, remember, as Al says, Al was the soul in the body. So
right.
I think when the thing was going like, it was Alphonse's soul inhabiting the body and giving it animation before he got rejected and his soul kind of, I don't know what happened, wandered around the room for a bit.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what it, I think that's what it, because you don't know, perhaps, like with Barry the Chopper, Barry's body, we don't know what soul is inside that body. It could be a lab, I think he says it's a lab animal.
Yeah.
Because obviously the thing that's in his body has no comprehension for human speech or whatever.
Yeah.
So it could be like a tiger, for all we know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are good episodes in the terms of it's like action going on, and so, again, just more plot progression. So, for instance, episode 19 is called Death of the Undying, because up until now, we've only seen homunculus as being these regenerative creatures who don't die. But if you try hard enough, you can kill somebody. Like, as you said, when we watched Heaven Sent, this is why if you want your boss to be unbeatable, you don't give them an HP limit. You make them unbeatable. And so this is one of those things where, okay, now we're seeing, these super freaky, scary homunculus dudes can be killed.
Right.
It takes a lot, but they can be killed.
Yeah.
And that's progressing us in a certain direction. And then also, we have more ideas about human transmutation and everything like that, which I don't know if they've said this line in the show yet, but basically what they're saying is, this is God's domain, and we don't we've proven several times why we don't step around in there.
Yeah, but we're gonna do it.
But we're gonna do it anyway, and then, you know, horrible things are gonna happen instead. This is why you don't do human transmutation, kids, okay? This is why you leave certain things to God.
Uh-huh. Oh, goodness.
I guess that kind of wraps it up then.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go with a lot of these things.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see, yeah, I mean, we already were seeing that when Wrath came in. We were starting to see things come together.
Yeah.
You know, the little various pieces coming through.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to point out, considering it is on our episode title topic, Hawkeye when she saw Mustang.
Oh, yes.
Oh my goodness. Both times.
Yeah, both times. So I think the where we both went out in the chorus of "Oh, they fucking" was when they are I think it's when they're descending into the creepy lab place, and Hawkeye looks at Mustang and she kind of smiles at him. You know, and he's saying things to her like, because all we've seen so far is a very strictly professional kind of, and like the military relationship with them, but obviously these two know each other. They have a background and they have history. We just don't know that yet. We just don't know what yet. But, and I think it deserves to be said that Hawkeye is also the only woman in Mustang's crew.
Yeah.
And they're clearly like the closest, because Hughes was not part of Mustang's crew. Hughes and Mustang were just like friends. But yeah, so that's when we see the whole thing, and Hawkeye is kind of like, yay. And, I mean, the obvious thing, though, is that later on, we're seeing where, when Lust says to Hawkeye, oh, he's dead, I killed him, and he's really dead, and she loses it. I want to note, though, that even though she loses it, it's very emotional, she's sure a sure shot at Lust.
She is! Oh my gosh, that was just... It was so cool because she was just doing the, like, the Tetragrammaton cleric thing from Equilibrium, where it's just like, gun, done. More gun. More gun. More gun.
And then the thing is, when Mustang shows up, Mustang knows Hawkeye is there, and he just goes ham on Lust and killing Lust. So, you know, he's partially motivated by saving Hawkeye.
Right.
So, you know, just saying.
It was... It's canon.
Yes.
I don't know enough about the show to know if it really, you know, if they really do go anywhere with it, but oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I've gone from, I guess I could see it to, you know, oh no, for real, wow.
Oh yeah, fans were onto something.
Oh, they fucking.
Oh, they fucking. It's so good. I'm so happy. Good.
I like that we've kind of broken the seal early on talking about ships.
Well, yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, the thing, okay, there's obviously a stigma in fandoms about shipping and whatever, fine. It's a well-deserved stigma sometimes. However, that does not negate the fact that these relationships do exist and happen in the show.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Sam and Annie is a thing in the show. Sam and Annie almost kissed the other episode. Like,
she keeps asking him to the movies, like
yes.
She's trying.
And then in Fullmetal Alchemist, it's, you know, we have Ed and Winry being very obviously, like, an item, and then it's this very clearly depicted thing between Mustang and Hawkeye, that there's something there, because Mustang seems to care about her more than other characters.
Uh-huh.
You know, like, so the thing is that we're not crazy for picking up on these things.
No.
It's the human condition part of it is that we end up in relationships, you know? So, right. I think it's not insane to be like, oh, I think there's something between Hawkeye and Mustang, because it's not insane to say that.
No, we are invested in the relationships that they have placed before us.
Yes. And there's more to come.
That means that they have succeeded in writing relationships that we care about.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'll just say right now, I really like the relationship between the Elric parents. We don't know about it yet, but I really like that relationship. And so, and again, they ended up married and having children, so clearly that's a relationship that exists, and I'm not crazy for seeing it, you know?
Yeah.
But, and so that's a thing that'll be obviously more involved in the plot later, and then there's a couple more things that'll be happening that I think you're going to find that you're going to enjoy / find amusing, so...
I am so interested to find out more about them, and I'm actually glad that we're going to find out more about them. Mm-hmm. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
Because they are a major curiosity.
What was the favorite violence of Life on Mars?
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I think my favorite was Gene shooting Wolf in the leg.
Yeah. It was him just... The timing of it was so good because he had...
God, it was so good. It was so satisfying.
Wolf had just launched into his, because you had Fletcher and Gene and Wolf, and they all have their guns out, and Sam's kind of in the background going, oh, shoot, for once it's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
And, Wolf is starting in his, well, gentlemen, look at this. I wonder who will shoot. Bang!
Yes, exactly. Had it been delayed, I would have been like, and had it been Fletcher who did it, it would also be very unsatisfying. But it was the fact that in the same scene we saw Gene be extremely conflicted and pussying out at one point, and then being like, "No!" and shoots him in the leg.
He's like, "I'm not gonna let you have your little monologue,
your little villain monologue here. You caught me monologuing."
So yeah, I gotta agree on that one. That was very good.
And then favorite sin.
Favorite sin. I mean, we're sort of retreading the previous sins, though. I mean, here's the thing: do we count alchemy as a whole as just being largely kind of sin-based? Or...
Well, the thing is that it's not. It's not necessarily sin because it isn't. It's just it is the science of deconstructing and reconstructing matter into other matter. So that's all alchemy is. Yeah. Alchemy is a tool. You can do with it what you will. I guess in terms of, like, if we're going to be doing really fast and loose with the definition here or whatever, is I would say my favorite sin is learning the result of a sin, which is even more so than finding out that the Albert boys did not bring back their mom. I am so relieved to learn that Azumi did not bring back her baby.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and the look of relief on her face.
Yeah. Like, that is so just horrible. It's like the whole thing is very horrible, and that is the whole thing, is a horrible thing that happened, and also a horrible thing that she did, but at least what we learned is, and she's so relieved to find out that she didn't cause more suffering for her baby.
I love the upshot of that scene. I love that she was relieved.
Yeah.
I like that was her reaction, like, I am glad that there was no more suffering.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to say that wasn't what I expected of the show, but it's not what I would expect of, say, maybe other shows trying to write this story. Mm-hmm. Like, it's an unexpectedly sympathetic take on it.
Yeah, and I think part of it is also just in my mind, because you don't know this part, is the 2003 anime is different about things.
Yeah.
And
so you've mentioned.
Yeah, as I may have said that just maybe like once or twice, but actually I will eventually go into depth about this, because I was telling you that homunculus are different and they're created differently than they're created here, and I will say that Azumi's baby is one of the things that's different in that regard, and I do think it's kind of handled. It's not like it's bad in the first one either. I do like, though, that in this version it's handled the way it is. It's handled very maturely, I think, is kind of the way to put it. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not flashy, it's not horrible, you know what I mean? Like, it's just sort of like, this, no, you didn't do that, and it's a very mature kind of closure to that. Yeah. That you wouldn't normally get otherwise.
Yeah. No, she as a character just in general, I really like. Mm-hmm. And just her whole thing. Yeah. Her whole deal, and how she operates and her emotions on things are very believable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, that was another episode of the Sin and Violence podcast. Yep. I'm Ginger.
And I'm Kara.
And that was the Sin and Violence podcast.
The podcast of equivalent exchange.
Yay.
Yay!